how's it going, guys? How's it going? How's everybody doing today? Let me see, it looks like I've got Wrath of Wood in here. Let me just kind of come over here, turn down my volume a bit. There we go, so it's nice and comfy on my end, so I can make it nice and comfy on your guys' end. How about that, huh? Well, this is a new song. Alright, that's fine. I'm okay with it, whatever. It don't matter, none of this matters. Well, anyways, glad to have you guys all in here. Looks like it's just Wrath of Wood for right now, but that's totally fine. Let me just kind of turn that down a wee bit, because I don't want it super loud. Just loud enough. Just loud enough. Whoop. What else is going on over here? Okay. I was having I don't know if you guys heard that bloop sound, but I was having a conversation with my father that is actually in relation to the topic that I have created for the stream. It's really kind of strange. Today's topic, which I kind of placed as the title, is kind of primarily going to be about comic books. Now, the thing about that is, for some reason today, comic books have been everywhere for me today. Really weird, really weird. I've been seeing them everywhere. Like, I've seen them on social media, I've seen them on YouTube. I've been hearing it, like, I've even, been talking to my father about, comic book movies, and there was just I was even watching a video of a guy who was doing a vlog, like I am right now, and, that had nothing to do with comic books, and then suddenly he ended up getting comic books, and he started talking about them, and, I've just had comic books on the brain, and the thing is, too, is that, and I know that I've, happened to have mentioned it a couple of times, but never really have actually, done anything about it, but I have a very, very serious comic book collection. For real. And the thing is that, the comic books that I have currently aren't even all of the comic books that I used to have. I used to have more comic books than I have now. In fact, actually, on top of the... How many boxes do I have back there? 12 plus 8. So that's probably... I think I have 20 boxes. Not comic books. 20 boxes that are comic book boxes, all filled to the brim. Some of them are overflowing, kind of, filled with comic books. And I'm not talking about, comic books that you've seen within the last 5 to 10 years. I'm talking about comic books that go all the way back to the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And, obviously, those are comic books from before I was born, so that comic book collection came from my father, and he, wanted to pass them down to me. He even told me a long time ago that he wanted to do that, and then when I ended up moving out on my own and kind of doing my own thing, that's when he decided that he wanted to unload all of his comic books on me, and I've just been kind of carrying them around, not doing anything with them. But I used to have more boxes of comic books that I don't have anymore, and I got rid of those when I had to move from California to Idaho. And I managed to get away with 20 boxes of comic books. But like I said, I had much more. I would say that the number of boxes that I ended up selling, because I couldn't take them all with me, we're probably around, I think I probably got rid of another 6, maybe 8 boxes full of comic books. Hey, my dad's in here! And so is Carly! Glad to have you guys in here. My poppy and my good friend Carly. Which is funny, because I'm literally in the process of talking about my dad anyways, so... But yeah, so I have comic books on the brain, and... like I said, the main thing is that I have been, all day today, I've been bombarded in YouTube and other social media just hearing about comic books everywhere. And I was like kind of sitting here thinking about, like, you know, one of the things was that the guy that I watched who was doing a vlog, and then he happened to talk about, you know, comic books. He ended up basically stumbling upon some comic books that were really rare or hard to find, and he was really deeply into it. He was really super into it, and he just started, like, he was like, oh yeah, like, this comic book is really rare for these reasons, and then he starts talking about, like, the characters, and like, what happens in the storyline, and why it's so interesting, and why people, you know, seek after the comic book, and he talked about the writer a little bit, and he talked about the you know, the animator of the comic book, and I found myself being really interested in what he had to say. And, you know, and that was kind of the start of, like, you know, when I saw that video, I was really kind of interested in, like, the idea that he was just kind of diving into talking about some of the details of the comic books. And then, afterwards, I watched a video which I sent to my father this morning, and me and him are kind of talking on and off about it. About the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League film, which I watched a video that was a guy, it was Matt Pat from Film Theory, and he was talking about his overall theory of what he thinks is going on with the lore and the storyline and things like that in the DC Cinematic Universe, the DCCU. And, like, what really got me, what really got me, like, and me and my father have been kind of talking and discussing about it and the intrigue behind it, but one of the things that really just totally caught me on that video, which, like, I'm sure that a lot of people don't give a crap about, like, if they watch that video, I'm sure my dad didn't even think about it because he didn't mention it at all to me, but the one thing that really, like, kind of, like, triggered my brain when I was watching that video was, the creator of the video, hold on, my headphones are being a little weird, they're kind of annoying me. I need to get new headphones, you guys. I got this, like, weird vibration thing going on that's, like, tickling my ear, and I'm not a fan of it. But anyways, the video that, like, what he said in the video that really kind of made me feel super weird was he started talking, he just briefly mentions Reverse Flash and started talking, like, and it didn't even matter. Like, the detail of talking about Reverse Flash in the video was, like, this minor detail that didn't even matter. And it just really got me because I was really, like, he just kind of, like, briefly made this joke about how Reverse Flash was a super uncreative villain character in the Flash series. And, like, for some reason that kind of, like, triggered me. Like, it was, like, I was like, oh, like, how could you say that? Like, Reverse Flash is such an interesting guy, and he's got all this lore and all this stuff, and blah, 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 and, like, there was, like, there was even, like, a really interesting storyline that I remember in one of the comic books that I have back there, where, like, Reverse Flash, like, tricks, like, I think it's, like, he tricks Barry Allen into, like, giving up his life as the Flash, and then Reverse Flash comes in and, like, steals the title out from under him and pretends to be him, and things like that. It's just, like, I don't know, I thought it was really interesting, and I always thought Reverse Flash was, like, a kind of interesting villain, and I liked the idea that he was, like, you know, Flash from a different universe who, like, turned evil because he's, like, an alternate version, and I don't know, I thought it was cool, and, like, it made me, like, go and, like, look up the original Reverse Flash, and, like, kind of read about the lore and the design of the character, and, like, why he was written the way he was, and, like, did you guys know that, like, Reverse Flash has been a villain in the Flash comics since 1949? I, like, went and looked that up because I was, like, curious and I wanted to know about it, you know? Like, and it's from the like, Reverse Flash is from the golden age of comics. He's been, like, I think they said that the Flash series was started, I think they said 1941. So, like, the original, like, Flash as a comic book hero character was first created and serialized as a you know, a hero in a comic series in 1941. And then Reverse Flash, like the villain character from a different timeline in a different, like, universe, was created as a villain in 1949. Like, how crazy is that? You know, and, like, that's why, like, it kind of, like, made me feel weird when I, like, because one of the things that he was saying in the video was how Reverse Flash is this super, you know, not interesting character who's, like, really, like, you know, it was just kind of a character who, like, he's a character that was super uncreative and not very well thought out. And I'm like, well, you know what? If you go back to the year 1949, when, you know, comic books were brand spanking new, I bet, like, nobody had ever thought of that kind of thing before, you know? Like, he's a super old villain who's got a relatively good, like, background and design, and, like, he's interesting to a degree. Like, yeah, like, now, in our current timeline, you know, like, in the year, you know, 2021, where, you know, we've seen every possible comic book under the sun, and we've seen every classic, you know, trope in every, you know, action flick or hero flick or whatever, or what have you. Like, yeah, the idea of, oh, it's just an evil Flash who's literally the opposite of Flash. Like, to us now, that seems really uncreative and uninteresting, I bet. But, like, I bet back in the year 1949, like, that was some mind-blowing shit back then, you know? Like, it just, like, I don't know. And, like, originally, I was even gonna leave a comment in, like, the video. Like, I was gonna leave a comment, like, an angry comment of, like, you don't understand, like, how great Reverse Flash is, and he's an amazing villain, and you have no right to be making fun of him. And I had all this stuff to say, and then I realized that I was just kind of, like, you know, there wasn't really any point. Like, I was just being mad for the sake of being mad, and I ended up not posting that comment on that video. Like, I didn't do that, because it just kind of felt like I was just, like, you know, pissing into the wind. You know what I mean? Where it's like, it doesn't serve any point, and I'm just being angry for the sake of being angry, so I decided not to do it. But what happened, like, there's a whole point of, like, why I'm talking about this, was, like, I spent a bunch of time, first of all, watching a bunch of people talk about comic books and stuff like that. And then kind of, like, you know, thinking of how interesting that was. And then on top of that, like, on my own, after watching, you know, that video, I, like, went out of my way to, like, go and look up that information. Like, I learned about, like, the year that the original, you know, Flash series was created, when Reverse Flash was created, like, why he was the way that he was, like, you know, what he did as a villain, like, what his influence was on the comic book universe at the time, and, like, you know, I even read about the writers a little bit. And on top of that, I was even doing, like, last night I did the same thing where I also, like, started watching, you know, another anime, and it blew my mind because it had similarities to another one, and it, like, I couldn't wrap my mind around it, so I went and I did a whole bunch of research on it. Just because I wanted to. Just because I thought it was really interesting, you know? And, like, my point is I know that's a completely different topic, but the thing is that I kind of realized that, you know, I had this genuine interest to kind of go out and do research on this stuff, and then, like, kind of, like, for my own personal gain, and, like, not necessarily using it for something. And, like, it kind of made me realize that, like, overall, you know, learning that information, realizing that I can, you know, go onto different websites, collect the information, even go as far as to write a comment about it in a video, and I was like, well, commenting is not the right way to actually go about this, you know? What I should be doing is I should be pulling out my comic books, going through them, researching them, and making videos about them. And, like, I came up with that idea. You guys might notice my hair's kind of wet. I took a shower, like, less than an hour ago, so my hair's still kind of wet. I came up with that idea while I was in the shower. And I was like, I had that moment in the shower where I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I have these rare, valuable comic books sitting in the back of my room, collecting dust and not having anything done with them. And, like, I have this, like, interest in, like, going out and, like, researching this information, which I can collect and, like, you know, make points about, and, like, even to the point of where I would go into a video and, like, argue, you know, in a comment section, which nobody's gonna read, you know, and, like, make all these valid points and things like that. And it's like, this should be, like, a video series, you know? And, like, that's kind of, like, what I came to, like, you know, seeing all of the videos today and all of the social media posts that I saw today about comic books and thinking really deeply about them and, like, being interested in what they had to say about them and doing my own research and realizing that I do have, like, my own kind of, you know, personal, you know, wanting to be involved in it and learn about it and, like, talk about it. Like, this is, like, a video series I could make, and this is what I should get into. So, and, like, that's what I wanted to kind of talk about, is I kind of wanted to, like, bounce the idea of, like, doing, like, a comic book research miniseries on the channel that I thought would be really fun. And, because I have some, like, amazing comic books in my collection. Like, my father gave me them, and some of them I found out recently are very, very hard to acquire. Like, they're very rare, and people seek after them. And, you know, knowing that I have a genuine interest in it, it's nice that I already have, you know, the actual material in my, you know, apartment that I can use to research and, like, collect that information and just kind of talk about them. Like, and I even want to get into, like, the, you know, I want to, like, kind of go as far as to even maybe talk about some of the writers and some of the animators and, like, you know, what they were doing at the time or possibly before then and things like that. So I'm going to catch up. I'm sorry. I definitely fell way behind on the comments section because you know how I go, guys. I kind of get into a rant and then I don't shut up and I don't pay attention to anything around me. And then I have to spend all the time going backwards and reading what everybody's up to. So Rather the Wood was celebrating Easter. Oh, and you guys were talking about comics. That's really... See, that's... something about today. Something about today, April 8th. Everybody's talking about comic books today. And I don't know what that's all about, but that's kind of a thing. Rather Wood says, I got an old Superman comic as a gift from my parents, put it away to keep safe, and it disappeared. Well, that's too bad, buddy. Yeah, I have a lot of, like, I actually found out that I have some incredibly valuable comic books. Some of them, like, one of the guys that I was watching, who was kind of doing a vlog, and he ended up talking about comic books in the process, what he does, and I kind of want to, like, do this too, is he has, like, collectible comic books, and he puts them in, like, acrylic frames, where they're, like, perfectly preserved, and then he hangs them on his wall. And I'm like, dude, that's super rad. I kind of want to do that. But then the problem is that I actually have so many, like, for example, one of my prized collections that I have, guys, is I have the entire first edition series of Watchmen. So I have every single issue of Watchmen. Now, how expensive, and also on top of that, how much physical space on my wall will that be to get the entire Watchmen first edition series in collectible acrylic frames and then hung up on my wall? And I live in a tiny apartment, you know, like, admittedly, maybe, like, taking a couple of my really rare comic books and then, like, maybe hanging them on that wall right there, that might be kind of cool, right? Like, that would be kind of a cool thing to do. My dad's all excited talking about it. He's like, oh, goody, comic books! It's like, that's his favorite. Harley says, Mike wanted to see that cut for it. Haven't seen the original or whatever was released, but just wanted to see his particular 4-hour creation. So, like, I haven't seen either of the films either, Carly. I haven't seen the Joss Whedon version, and I haven't seen the Zack Snyder version. And I heard that the general consensus is that the Joss Whedon version is terrible, and the Zack Snyder version is, like, amazing. So, and especially after the video that I watched today, which was specifically talking about the Zack Snyder DC cinematic universe and things like that, and how all the videos and movies are connected, I get the impression that it probably is amazing. Like, my dad originally told me that I need to go and see it, and I was like, I don't know, like, maybe, I'm kind of weird where it's like, I have to hear multiple different people tell me that something's really good before I go out and, like, try to see it. So, like, this is now, like, the third or fourth time that I've had somebody recommend me to go and see the Zack Snyder version of, the Justice League movie. Like, with all of them saying it's amazing. So it's like, I feel like I have to, like, actually make an effort now to go and see that movie. And, like, I don't know if I want to see the Joss Whedon version, but the video that I saw today talking about the DC cinematic universe and how all the movies are connected, kind of begs the idea that you might have to see the Joss Whedon version, even though it's terrible, to, like, understand what's going on in the cinematic universe or something. Which I'm not particularly a fan of because, I'll do anything to skip a bad movie. It's not that hard for me to skip bad movies in general. Hey, Toasted Ape! I'm sorry if I didn't say hello to you earlier, but thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Audio-Technica headphones are pretty boss, says Carly. I actually have a pair of Audio-Technica headphones, but they are falling apart. I now have the issue where, the cord is so old that if you have it just barely, like, it's like you have one spot that it can be in and the sound is perfect, but, like, if it twists just the wrong way, like, you have no sound on the left side, or you have no sound on the right side, you know what I mean? So, my Audio-Technicas are pretty much kaput. And those were originally the kind of studio headphones I used to use, so... can Reverse Flash only run backwards? Well, Reverse Flash, he's actually a pretty cool villain. That's why I got all defensive about it today when I was watching that video, was I was like, why did you talk crap about Reverse Flash? I like Reverse Flash. I think he's a cool villain, okay? I don't care what anybody says. I think he's cool. My dad says my recollection of Reverse Flash from Future is that he murdered Iris. 1940s Flash is Jay Garrick, who was nowhere near Barry Allen's ability. Yeah, so they eventually... So from what I read, and mind you, I read this in a wiki page that was talking about Reverse Flash, because I kind of wanted to do a little research on him before I posted a comment that I never actually posted. But apparently what happened was they introduced Reverse Flash right as they were ending Jay Garrick. So, like, Jay Garrick was introduced in 1940, and then they introduced Reverse Flash, who was at the end of the Jay Garrick storyline. And I think they said that, like, they brought in Reverse Flash right as they pulled out Jay Garrick. But Jay Garrick was still Flash when they introduced Reverse Flash. But that was by the time that they were in the process of passing Jay Garrick down to Barry Allen, I believe. Rytherwood says, Evil Hulk is Red Hulk, mind blown. I was never into Hulk, but then again, I've never been much of a Marvel boy. I've always been more of a DC kind of boy. My father says, the Flash series made Reverse Flash more interesting. I mean, I didn't, but that's the thing, though. Like, I don't know why people have to say that, oh, well, he wasn't interesting until recently. And it's like, Reverse Flash was kind of cool back in the old days. Like, one of the most interesting ones was that, like, when I was originally first cataloging the comic books that I had this, a collection, like, there were, like, 3 or 4 comic books that really intrigued me that was all about, the Flash giving up being the Flash. Like, he takes off his costume and, like, he hangs it on a tree and stabs a knife through it with a note that basically says, like, this is the Flash declaring that he doesn't want to be the Flash anymore. And if I remember correctly, the whole thing behind it was that Reverse Flash, like, tricked him into giving up being the Flash so that Reverse Flash could come in and be Flash. Like, and it was cool. It was, I don't know, like, I thought it was really cool. I thought it was really clever. And I mean, I don't know. I think Reverse Flash is a cool villain, and it kind of, like, bugs me a little bit that everybody doesn't like him. And, like, the thing that I also thought was really cool was that there was originally, like, the original introduction of Reverse Flash was that they introduced him as a Flash from another, you know, universe, like another alternate reality. And originally, the original story was that Reverse Flash, who was just alternate world Flash, like, teamed up with the real Flash, and they were, like, buddies, and they, like, worked together. But, like, the whole story was that he was trying to, like, put the real Flash into a false sense of security so that he could, like, betray him later. And then he started pinning crimes on the real Flash, and I thought it was cool. I don't know. I guess people don't like Reverse Flash, but I always thought Reverse Flash was super cool, so I don't know. It's that, you know, like, it's like a body snatch. He was like, it was more than just he's like, ooh, like, he's the Flash, but evil. Like, the thing that made him cool was he was kind of like a body snatcher kind of character. Like, there were multiple times where he, like, multiple different storylines where his whole shtick was he was pretending to be the real Flash to, like, you know, make the real Flash look really bad. And I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know. Yeah, Jay Garrick was Golden Age Flash, Barry Allen's Silver Age, and yeah, I know that. And Maz, hi Maz! Sorry, I'm still falling super behind. I'm trying to catch up, guys, I promise. Hey, Mason Wilson, glad to have you in here. Thank you for being here, buddy. We're just kind of talking about comic books and stuff like that. Let's see here. My LGS has those frames. They're not cheap though. Yeah, but see, here's the thing, Wrathwood. I live in a town where comic book shops don't exist. Like, the last comic book shop went out, like, in my area, like, went out of business, like, I think, like, 2 or 3 years ago. So, like, I think it was back in 2019 when the last comic book shop in my town went out of business. So if I wanted to get something like that, I could only order it online, and that's kind of a little bit of a hassle in a way. Yeah, there's only so much wall space. Yeah, that's the thing, is because, like, when you have an entire collection of, like, first editions of, you know, like, Watchmen and, you know, what's the other one? V for Vendetta. Guys, I have the entire collection, first edition of V for Vendetta. And I have, like, what is it? Like, Infinite Crisis? Like, I have first editions of the entire Infinite Crisis, you know, series. And then, like, there's the reboot of, you know, Wonder Woman, which is, like, worth a small fortune, and I'd love to, like, kind of hang those up on the wall. And I have a lot of valuable comic books that would be really cool to put on display. But the only problem is that, like, if I... Guys, if I framed all of the really valuable comic books I had and put them on my walls, I would be turning my entire apartment into a comic book store. Like, there would be comic books lining the entire apartment. Oh, man. Let's see here. Let me kind of catch up a little bit more. Too bad it's not the Rob Schneider cut with more Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider is a banana pretending to be Superman. What kind of shenanigans will Rob Schneider as a banana dressed as Superman get into this time? Rob Schneider is a white girl. I didn't think the Joss version was terrible. It was just poor, disjointed, incomplete. Let me with impression that he had cut continuity. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've just heard, like, I mean, I feel like the general consensus is that it's not all that great, you know, but, I mean, I don't really know very much about it simply because I just haven't seen it, so I can't possibly know about something I haven't seen. Rob Schneider is a stapler. Carly says, oh, that's too bad. The muffs of mine are old and, like, peeling. The material is flaking off, but otherwise they are great. Yeah, well, I mean, these headphones... So that's the thing. My Audio-Technica headphones, like, I can't get mad about them falling apart because I've had them since high school. No joke. I've had the headphones since 2009 or 2010. And they've held up until this year. This year was when I finally, like, decided I can't use these anymore. They are now officially a problem. So, you know, that's like... Those headphones lasted like 10 years. I have no complaints about them whatsoever. Like, I've never, until I had those Audio-Technica headphones, I have never had a pair of headphones that lasted me 10 frickin' years. That's insane. Like, I'm legit impressed. And I would definitely buy those again. You know, I would definitely buy Audio-Technica headphones again if they told me, like, you know, like, oh, these are like $150, but we'll guarantee you they'll last you 10 years. Like, yeah, I'll buy them again. Like, hell yeah, that's way worth it. Like, you know, they're great. But yeah, they just fell apart this year, and it's sad, but, you know, 10 years, like, I ain't mad about it. The Flash took off his costume and flashed everyone. Kinda! Flash getting naked. He flashed really fast, so nobody knew. Yes, he did it super quick. Here, because the band I saw screamed you out. Oh, cool! Thank you for being here, Mason. I appreciate that. Wow, thank you, Maz. Yeah, Mason, Maz, in the chat log. That's the band you saw. She's the one who screamed my name out. Wow, I'm super appreciative of that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, like, comment, hit the notification bell, do all those wonderful things. And Maz, thank you so much. I super appreciate that. Awesome. Frozen Dynamite? Is that actually what you named the band, Maz? That's kind of interesting. That's not bad. That's better than the previous name you guys had. That's for sure. Very cool. Yeah, definitely. That's so awesome. But yeah, like I said, I think that overall, what I really want to do is, I think I want to do like a video series where, like, I kind of already have kind of planned out what I really want to do, which is, like, I think, because I have, like, so many comic books, and I kind of had the idea that I think what I'll start doing is I'll do, like, a video series that basically I'll basically pull out, like, a comic book, right? Like a single comic book, and I'll do like a bunch of research on it, and then do something like a 10 or 15 minute video just kind of like talking about the comic book and things like that, and maybe like showing images of it or something like that, kind of talking about, you know, like the history, maybe like a little tiny plot synopsis of it, and just, I don't know, I think that would be really fun, you know, like I think that would be something that I would genuinely be interested in doing. And, like, it would be constructive with something that I have laying around that I should, you know, use more, you know? Because, like, they're just sitting back there collecting dust. And, like, I like the idea that I can just kind of, like, pull them out and, you know, make some content about it. And I think what would also be kind of fun is that, like, you know, people who are, you know, like, really interested in the, you know, the comic book movies that have been coming out lately, and maybe getting like a little bit of a background and some story and some information about what those movies are based off of. Because, I mean, I feel like that a lot of comic book movie fans don't necessarily, what's the word? They don't necessarily get the connection between the movies and the comic books. And I think that maybe kind of like doing, you know, some, like, just kind of reviewing the comic books and comparing them to the movies and, like, what makes them different, where the similarities are had, and, like, maybe even, like, making some criticisms about what they could use from the comic books versus what they could definitely stay away from, because, you know, Like, there are definitely times where I think that, you know, the comic books tell the story better than the movies. And then there are times where I think the movies can genuinely tell the story better than the comic books. And I've definitely seen multiple different versions of that. Like, for example, like, one of my favorite things is the idea that, like, I thought that the Watchmen comic books tell the story better than the Watchmen movie. And the Watchmen movie should have definitely been a little more accurate to the comic books. But then I think about, on top of that, like, for example, the Marvel movies, and how there's multiple different Marvel movies that tell the story better than the Marvel comic books. Like, they ended up, like, taking some of, like, the things that the Marvel comic books were lazy about or weren't as creative about, and then fleshed them out better and made them more relatable to the audience that are watching the movies now. So, and I think that would be really fun, just kind of, like, reviewing that stuff and talking about it a little bit and you know, seeing how people feel about it. Carly says, it's certainly worth a shot, and if it's something you want to try and makes you happy, then I'd say go for it. I agree. Like, it's just, like I said, I only kind of came up with it today, but it was, like, it was very surprising to me seeing how many videos that popped up into my YouTube feed today that were all just about comic books. And, like, I was like, whoa, like, this is a thing, and, like, clearly I'm interested, and clearly I want to talk about it. So, I should do something about it, you know? Like, I think that would be really fun. So, creating... Ooh. That was weird. Huh. My whole screen just, like, flashed for... Like, Streamlabs just flashed really quickly. It was super crazy. I was actually really scared that the stream suddenly, like, shut down or something. That was weird. But it looks like everything's okay. I think everybody can see me just fine. Let's see here. My dad says they're not collecting dust because they're covered. They're collecting time. That's true. That is very true. I definitely kind of want to, like, pull them out and kind of take a look at them. And like, I was actually really surprised because, like, the guy who I was watching who was talking about comic books, he was actually talking about, like, the aging of the comic books, like the yellowing, and, like, the yellowing of the pages, and then, like, the residue that, you know, sitting, like, the yellow residue that comes off of the book and kind of, like, lands on the cardboard and discolors the cardboard, and he's like, you can literally see the age on the covering of the you know, the cover of the comic book and stuff like that. And he also talked about something that I didn't know, which is that apparently, like, he said he was talking about how he wanted to, like, take all of his old vintage comic books that have basically not been touched even, like, as he purchased them. Like, he purchased them in the protective wraps. And he said that based on how old they are and when they were placed in their coverings, the plastic that they use for those coverings are apparently, some of them can be destructive to the comic books inside of the coverings. So he says that, like, after a certain particular aging of them, he pulls the comic books out and puts them in brand new plastic sleeves. So, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because I didn't even know that, you know? So, I don't know. Something about the, like, chemical residue of the plastic or something like that that's used for protecting those kinds of comic books. So, that might be something that I have to look into. I don't know. I mean, you know, I haven't really messed around with the comic books, and I'm also trying to be extra careful, like, because, you know, there's some people who are like, oh yeah, like, you never take them out of those plastic covers, because you could damage them. And I was like, oh, there's a few that I've done that with. Oops. Like, I don't think I've done that with any of the crazy, crazy valuable ones. Like, there's some that I just, like, didn't even bother messing around with, because I was just like, well, this is, like, you know, inside of this covering is something that's worth, like, over $1,000. Like, I'm not gonna pull this thing out and mess with it, clearly. But, you know, there are a few where it's like, oh, this is like a $20 one. I'll just pull this sucker right out. Who cares? And it's like, well, you know, it's probably not worth $20 anymore. And, you know, in the future when it's worth 1,000, it'll probably only be worth 100. And it's like, uh-oh. But I mean, I swear, like, the really, really special ones I'm kind of smarter with. So I've learned to kind of be a little bit more cautious about it, I guess. Oh, that's really weird. Whoa. Hold on a second, guys. I have to check something. So, remember when I said that Streamlabs did something weird where I thought the whole thing went down? I just now looked at the page for, like, the software, and it's actually acting as if I restarted the whole stream. Now, it looks like YouTube is not doing that. Like, YouTube still is saying that this stream has been going on for about 43 minutes. But Streamlabs, after it had that crazy software flash, it's acting as if I restarted the entire stream. So it's like recounting. It's like, you've been live for 5 minutes. And it's like, no, that's really weird. All right, well, I'll have to look into that later. But it does look like everything's okay. But I will just have to be a little more attentive to the time. So that's weird. Let's see here. Carly says, I may bring back my Trash or Treasure series. That was a good series, Carly. I used to watch that. It wasn't super popular, big view videos or anything, but it made me happy, excited to play with people's choices, felt more involved, had new experiences. Yeah, you do what you want, girl. It's all good. So I think something that makes you happy to make is a good choice. We all want popular and big channels, but if it's not fulfilling, that's kind of hollow, and if the series takes off for you, even better. Yeah, I know. I definitely feel like that, too. I mean, I would definitely say, like, there are times, like, especially, like, I was feeling it kind of yesterday, but there are definitely times where I feel like that I, you know, work really hard on something, and I'm just like, you know, like, oh, like, I worked super hard on this, and this is going to be great, and people are going to love it. And then, like, nobody watches it. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. You know? But, like, at the same time, like, and that feels really lame, you know? But then I kind of reflect on it. Like, and this happened to me yesterday, too. Because I was feeling pretty annoyed by that. But then I kind of, like, reflected on it. And I was like, I had so much fun making that. Like, it was legitimately, like, I had fun creating the video. Like, I had fun playing the game. I had fun recording the video. I had fun editing the video. Like, so, like, every part of that experience was incredibly fun for me. So, like, who cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really enjoyed it. I had a really super great time. And, like, you know, like, I'm sure that someday, like, people will grow to appreciate it. You know, and that's fine. But, like, I'm not gonna stop. Like, you know, like, that's not how I roll. Like, I finally, like, this is, like, creating content, like, doing streams, and making videos, and doing this, is, like, the first time that I've ever had something where I was creating something. You know, like, actively doing something and creating, like, a form of content for people to consume, where, like, I feel like that I can work on this almost every day, and I feel like that this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, it feels wholesome, it feels right, and I totally enjoy it, and I don't want to stop. And, like, there's never been an activity or a hobby or a job that I've ever worked before in my entire life where I've felt like that. You know, like, where I felt like that, you know, I've never worked a job in my entire life where I was like, yeah, I can do this for the rest of my life. You know, like, I've never had a job like that in my entire life where I literally worked a job and said to myself, I think I could see myself doing this for the rest of my entire life and be totally satisfied with it. Never had that. And then when I started doing, you know, video content, like, I started making videos, and I started doing streams, and I started being on YouTube, and building a community, and hanging out with everybody, this was, like, the first time that I've ever done something where I'm like, I'm spending all of my time in creating something for the purpose of people enjoying and consuming. And I feel like I can do this for the rest of my life and be totally satisfied with it. You know? So, like, that's what, like, drives me, you know, like, to not give up and want to keep doing it. And, like, I'm sure that, you know, if I don't give up and I keep working on it, like, something's going to, like, work, you know? Something is definitely going to, you know, get me out there, and people are going to want to, you know, consume all the material that I make and all that. But the thing is, though, too, is that, like, you know, if I just give up, like, if I try something and it doesn't work and I just give up on it and then I never do it again, then I'm never going to, like, know what works. Like, I'm never going to get to that point where I'm going to find something that just is going to, you know, work for me and get people to, like, watch what I'm making and get people to wholeheartedly enjoy what I'm creating and things like that. So, like, the thing is that, like, even though, you know, I'm not having my material consumed by, like, you know, thousands of people or whatever, the point is, though, is that that's not an excuse to just give up, like, lay over and give up. Because, like, for the first time ever, I'm doing something that I genuinely enjoy. And as long as I can keep enjoying it, then I can keep doing it. And as long as I can keep doing it, then eventually something's going to work and people are going to realize, you know, like, oh, this is great and we want to be a part of this and we enjoy what you're doing. So, like, who knows? Like, maybe maybe it'll be this new series I'm thinking about working on for comic books. Maybe that'll be it. Or maybe it won't. Maybe I'll play a game in the future that gets really popular. Maybe that'll be it. Or maybe not. Or, you know, maybe, I don't know, like, who knows? Maybe someday my vlogs will take off and people will want to hang out here. Like, tons and tons of people will want to come in. I know that I already have a great group of people that come in and hang out and, you know, do that. But, you know, like, maybe I'll have, like, vlogs that people are like, hey, you know what? This is actually good. Like, we actually want to be here, like, listening to what you say. The point is that, like, you know, the numbers could be small for right now, but that's not guaranteed to be that way forever, and I don't expect it to be. So I can't give up on it, you know? Because I like this. I like doing what I'm doing. You know, like I said, like, this is the first time I've ever had something where I genuinely feel like that, you know, I'm doing something that I can see myself doing for, like, the rest of my life. So, like, I feel passionate about it, and, like, you know, I can't be passionate on it if it's something that I just would give up on. You know, like, because that means that if I just give up on it, that means that I was never actually passionate about it, you know? So, if you're passionate about something, then you shouldn't give up on it. Like, that's just how it is. Let me catch up a little bit more. Hey, Zoo! Glad to have you and your girlfriend. I also noticed that G-Gamer popped in as well, so hello to you, my good friend. Glad to have you all in here. My dad says, hard to believe that Snyder messed up Watchmen, considering how well he did with Justice League. Yeah, Watchmen was, it's not the worst movie of all time, but, like, it had a lot to be desired. I feel like that the biggest egregious thing that happened in the Watchmen film was he completely and totally ruined the ending. And the thing is, what really sucks about that is because, like, you know, like, I've had to come to terms with certain things where it's like, the show was great, but the ending was terrible. And, like, you know, a lot of the time you can say that, like, oh, well, but it was still a good story. Like, yes, the ending was ruined, but it was still a good story. But the problem with Watchmen, especially with the movie, is that Watchmen is a story that revolves around its ending. The whole, there's a lot of really interesting things going on in the Watchmen story. But the thing is that the ending of Watchmen, like, the big climactic ending of Watchmen, is literally what the whole entire plot revolves around. The entire plot of Watchmen revolves around the climax. So, like, if you screw up the climax of Watchmen, you literally ruin the entire story. Like, because it's like, you know, like, there's been plenty of times, like, I've had to come to terms with a few different stories that I've enjoyed, where it's like, oh, like, yeah, it was a good story, but I hated it because they ruined the ending. And it's like, yeah, but if you took that ending out, you can still enjoy that it's a good story. Like, yeah, that's true. Yes. But when you have a story that completely revolves around how it ends, then if you ruin the ending, then the whole story is ruined. And that's what Watchmen's all about. Watchmen is, like, no joke. No joke. There's literally a theme that at the beginning of every single chapter, they show you, like, every chapter in Watchmen is a countdown to the ending. Like, no joke. Like, they open up every single chapter by showing you a clock. And the clock gets to the final peak of what's going on in the final chapter. Like, the final hour is the final chapter. And everything that happens in the entire story of Watchmen revolves around getting to that final ending part in the story. So, like, quite literally, the entire story revolves around the ending of the story. So, like, if you screw up the ending of Watchmen, and you disregard, like, what the entire ending was making a point of, and, like, the whole point of, like, when you ruin that ending, you literally ruin the entire story, because it literally revolves around that one main point. So, like, yeah, the movie was ruined because they screwed up the ending so badly, and that was really egregious. But, you know, it's definitely just, you know, the Watchmen movie's not the worst thing I've ever, like, it's not the worst superhero film, but it's not that great either. And, like I said, like, if you want the full Watchmen experience, you go and read the comic books, like, honestly. Let's see here. Once again, I kind of fell behind. I apologize. Watchmen TV series, ignore the Snyder movie. I didn't know that Watchmen was getting a TV series. That's something I haven't heard about. Wow, okay. Ratherwood says the old plastic dries out too. I think you're talking about the sleeves for the comic books. Yeah, I heard that it has something to do with the chemical composition of the plastic that they used back in, like, the 60s, 70s, and 80s or something. Like, it's got, like, a residue that, like, affects the comic book pages or something. I'm not totally sure about it, but I was definitely seeing some stuff about that. There's definitely a difference between a collector and a fan who collects. Yeah, I guess so. Well, it's funny because I've definitely had a couple of times where, like, you know, I was in a stream where they were talking about comic books, and there was, like, people in the chat log talking about comic books, and, like, there's, like, yeah, I'm a collector. I've got, like, a box full of comic books, and I'd say I'm a pretty avid collector. And, like, it felt weird being like, yeah, I mean, I do have a comic book collection. And they're like, yeah, how big's your comic book collection? I'm like, oh, you know, I got, like, you know, 20 boxes overflowing with comic books. And they're just like, what? And I'm like, yeah, and I have, like, the old Wonder Woman reboot series. And they're like, the old reboot? Yeah, you know, the old one that they redid the whole, you know, DC reboot with for Wonder Woman. I have that series. I have, like, the first 10. The first 10? First edition? Yeah, you know, it's whatever. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, and then I have, like, the first edition of Watchmen, and they're like, what? Watchmen first edition? Yeah, you know, it's whatever. I have them. They're not even sleeved. They're just kind of in, like, a plastic pouch, all grouped together, stacked in one another. It's whatever. There's an old price tag on it that said the entire collection was worth $20 back in the 70s. You don't have them sleeved? Nah, I didn't bother. Didn't have the money or the time. You know, it's whatever. But I mean, I just kind of collect comic books. It's whatever. What? Who are you? What challenger has stepped into this arena today? You are a mighty foe indeed. It's so funny. I do need to actually take better care of my comic books. Here, you know what? Hold on a second. Let me just kind of... I'll be right back real quick. Give me a second here. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm here. I just kind of have these sitting on top of the box because they're probably the most important. And I'm never sure when I'm going to, like, need them for something, so I just kind of have them on the top. But, yeah, here's issue 1, first edition, V for Vendetta. Here's number 2. And these are all first editions. Here's number 3. 4. And 5. I love this, by the way. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Can you guys see that? It's a little... It doesn't really come up in the camera. So it says V for Vendetta, first edition, number 5, $2. And this one is 6 with a price tag of $2.25. And then 7. And then here's number 8. Kind of, the plastic's a little stuck here. Hold on a second. Here's number 8. And here's number 9. And then here's number 10. And that's just the first edition collection of V for Vendetta. And then, oh, they are sleeved. Okay, I was just joking. I thought that, you know, saying they were unsleeved would get a little bit more shock factor out of it. But here's the entire first edition collection of Watchmen. 1 through... how many? 1 through 12. And you'll notice that the price tag up here... $25 value sale with a $40 value price tag. Ooh. Ooh. But they're all sleeved. It's okay. They're not in harm's way, I promise. And this here is the entire first edition collection of Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's the entire collection. All, it says complete set. I don't know how many that is total. Looks like quite a few. Probably around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's hard to see all of them. I think it's around maybe 12 or 15 from what I can see here. And they're all properly sleeved, so no damage comes to them. So I was just being a silly troll when I said they were all unsleeved. So they're all being taken care of. They're all just fine. And basically, these are bricks of gold, basically. They're all insanely, ludicrously valuable, and, you know. I would love to actually get them framed. That would be super cool. But that's a lot of comic books to get framed, and God only knows where the hell I'd hide them all. Let me catch up a little bit, too. I'm sorry, I'm still falling behind like I should be, like I always am. Okay, so let me catch up. I'm sorry, guys. There's a difference. Yeah, okay. Tales from the Crypt. I've actually never read those before. I never read any of the Tales of the Crypt stuff. Better than it completely crashing, maybe some kind of failsafe for Streamlabs. Yeah, it's possible. I've never seen Streamlabs hiccup like that. It was really, really strange. Carly says, yes, Habanero, I know that very well, where you work really hard on something and nobody cares. Yeah. Yeah, that's the story of my life on my channel, but that's okay. I don't get mad about it. I get a little frustrated. And then I'm like, no reason to be frustrated. You're doing what you love. It's, you know, it's a labor of love. Totally fine. Just move on and keep working hard and don't give up. That's what I say to myself every single time. Oh, thank you for rooting for me, Carly. I really appreciate that, girlfriend. Gamer says he'd buy a comic book made by you. Someday! It's kind of, like, I actually want to write a light novel series, and I've been trying to kind of, like, figure out a way to integrate that into my life lately. I've been trying to see if I can make time to actually, like, practice my writing and you know, write something on the side every once in a while. So, you know, that's also another thing, is I have a plan that if I do end up writing something significant, I might release it on my Patreon. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Who knows? And by the way, my Patreon's a wonderful place to be, because I have early releases and uncensored content on there. So if you want to check that stuff out, I highly recommend joining the Patreon, checking it out. Let's see. Zoo says, I have the Watchmen comic book. I absolutely love looking at the artwork. Very cool, Zoo. You have so I have the comic books, first editions, and I also have a graphic novel copy, so that, like, if I ever wanted to, like, read it just out of enjoyment, I have that to read instead of the first editions. So it's great. Like, I would actually declare that Watchmen is probably one of the greatest comic books ever made, hands down. It's very, very good. Let's see here. Mason is talking to Maz about her band. Very cool. All right. Let's see. Hobbs going to flex. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, that's with all the comic books. That's not even all of them. Like, clearly it's not. I have like 20 boxes or so. Like, between, like, I want to say between, like, probably somewhere between 15 and 20 boxes full of collectible comic books, mostly from the 70s and 80s. There's a few from the 60s as well, but mostly 70s and 80s comic books. My dad says, I remember buying those. It's good to be the king. Crisis should be about 12 copies. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I mean, I want to definitely kind of, like, I want to make content about comic books. Because clearly, like I said, the overall consensus that I came to today is that I'm more passionate about it than I originally expected it to be. Than what I had expected myself to be, which is, you know, so I think that I have some ideas of what I'm going to do, and I haven't recorded anything. Like I said, I just kind of came up with this idea today. Maybe I'll try to record something before the day's over, but that doesn't mean it'll be ready for release, because I'll want to, like, edit it and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Well, I might have to even, like, my plan is to maybe even do some research on things like that to kind of really get it right and, you know, do a pretty decent job with it. And I think it would be really fun. But, I like the idea of, you know, trying out new kinds of content and trying things that I'm passionate about and something that I can strive for and enjoy and share with people. And I think that might be something interesting that people might, you know, come to appreciate a little bit better, especially considering that, you know, comic book movies are such a big hit right now. And, you know, people might find, like, a deeper interest in older comic books and kind of, like, the lore perspectives and some of the more, you know, uncommon things known about some of the stories from the past. And I don't know, I just... It was really heavily on my mind today, and I definitely wanted to talk about it clearly. So, let's see here. Any sealed comics? I do, actually. I have... One of the ones that I remember really well that I have in my collection is I have the Funeral for a Friend series. I don't have the... For anybody who doesn't know Funeral for a Friend... Funeral for... My dad will be like, oh, pick me! I know Funeral for a Friend! My dad's probably like, I know what Funeral for a Friend is! For anybody who doesn't know, Funeral for a Friend is a series of comic books that was released in multiple different serials for different heroes. So, like, they had the Flash comics, they had the Batman comics, they had the Superman comics, they had, you know, Green Lantern comics, they had all those, right? And the Funeral for a Friend was a series that they did where Superman died. It was the death of Superman, which was a big freaking deal. Big freaking deal. Everybody made such a huge deal out of it. And the Funeral for a Friend series was, they took every single DC comic book line, so like Green Lantern, Batman, Flash, all of those, and they did a special story dedicated to how that character in that series reacted to the death of Superman. And the reason why I bring that up, because when Wrath of Wood asked about whether or not I had any sealed comic books, I have multiple issues of the Funeral for a Friend series sealed in bag. So in the sense of they've never been touched by human hands. They were printed as a special promotion for the Funeral for a Friend series, and then sealed in either a black bag, which was the most common because it was supposed to represent like a black body bag, or a red bag. So most of the ones that I have are sealed in red bags, but I do have a couple that are specially sealed in the black funeral bag, which is super cool. So I do have a few of those, and obviously you can't open them. Like, you can't. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to open those. Because the moment that you open one of those sealed bags, you probably lose about multiple hundreds of dollars off of the price tag of that item. So, but yes, I do, and I do have some other comic books that are sealed in bag that are not related to that series. But the Funeral for a Friend series, the ones that are sealed in bags, are probably the most valuable ones that I have of my collection of sealed comic books. But I do have a few other ones as well that are pretty neat. None that immediately jump to my mind, but I always remember the black bag Funeral for a Friend book that I have, because that is really cool. That's really, really cool to have that. And like I said, apparently I am opening Shotcut for no damn reason. Yes, please take your time. No, go ahead and load. We're all waiting here. Go ahead and load. Thank you. Okay, now goodbye. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I misclicked something, so. But yeah, I do have a few of the sealed in bag comic books, which can be pretty nice to have, but the Funeral for a Friend series is pretty impressive. Let's see here. Mason says he's gotta go. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining the channel and hanging out with us. It's greatly appreciated. Brotherwood says, I have a sealed McFarlane Spider-Man #1 plus the gold web variant. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I have a few. Like I said, the only ones that I can think of that really matter are the black bag ones that I have. But other than that, I think I have some like old Robin comics that are sealed in bag. That kind of sounds familiar to me. I'd literally have to like go and pull the box out and go through them, but that's not what I'm gonna do. So yeah, I mean, eventually maybe I'll do that, but that's not what I'm here to do today. Zeus says I probably have the graphic novel version of the Watchmen. It's really thick. Yeah, it's a big old graphic novel book. Yep, that's probably what that. Well, because if you had the series, they would be, you know, like individual comic books like this. Like these are all. Those are all individual comic books. So, but still, like, having the actual graphic novel is nothing to scoff at. Like, it's great to have. And, like, it's a great story. And it's probably, like, having the actual graphic novel of Watchmen is probably, like, the best way to enjoy that story. Like, hands down. Because you have it all in one go, you know? And you could just read through it at your own leisure. And you don't have to worry about, you know, individually collecting each, like, you know, comic book. And, you know, and also that comes with a hefty price tag on its own if you were to even try to collect the comic books and all that, because it ain't cheap, you know? So just having, like, the nice cheap, because it's a great story. Like, you know, there are comic books that you know, are valuable and nice to have as a collector. But not all of them really tell, like, the best stories of all time. Like, Watchmen is a story that's worth reading. It's legitimately a really fantastic, well-produced, well-written story. Like, so having just the whole story in one book that you can read at your leisure and not have to worry about spending tons and tons of money to buy the comic books, it's definitely worth your time. So there's nothing wrong with having it. Like, not at all. My dad says Watchmen's the number 1, V for Vendetta's number 2. I've actually never read the entire V for Vendetta series. I don't know if I have the graphic novel. I think I might. I might have the actual graphic novel, but I don't remember. But I definitely have not actually read it. That was one that I never got through. So at some point I probably will. Let's see here. Surprisingly good condition considering I got it from a thrift store. That's really cool. That's really neat, actually. There's actually, the thing is, it's actually also interesting is that there are different printings of the graphic novel. And they, like, each different printing of the graphic novel of Watchmen has, like, a different cover art on it. And I think that some of the cover arts, like, some of the different printings which have different cover arts, are actually worth something, if I remember correctly. So that's kind of cool. So if you have, like, an older copy with a specific kind of, you know, cover art on it, it actually might be worth something. You never know. Living near a rich area has its perks. I can see that. Thrift stores near rich areas probably are pretty nice. My buddy picked up a ton of D&D books from a thrift store. That's really cool, Wrathwood. I actually got I have a pretty good collection of Dungeons and Dragons books myself, all from 4th edition. And I got them all for free. I didn't pay, I think I only paid for one. Out of all of the D&D manuals I have, I paid for a singular one of them. And that was because somebody needed one that I had a copy of, but I couldn't lend them my copy. So I bought myself an additional copy so that they could borrow it. And they would use it whenever they would come over to my place to play D&D. So I always had 2 copies of that one book. But all the other D&D manuals I have, I got for free. A friend of mine gave them to me a long time ago, because he didn't want them anymore, and he wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, and they wanted me to be the Dungeon Master. So I picked up the role of being the Dungeon Master, and he left all of his D&D books for me to study. And then eventually I was like, well, hey, dude, do you want them back? And he's like, no, keep them, they're yours. I don't want them anymore. And I was like, cool, I'll keep your Dungeons and Dragons books. That's awesome. Thank you. So, yeah. Let's see here. Cobalt, what's up, Cobalt? Glad to have you in here. Cobalt says he got his hands on a PS5. That's pretty cool, bro. Nice job, man. I don't really buy consoles anymore. That's not really my thing. Let's see. My Poppy says, if I remember right, Mike has several variants of the first McFarlane Spidey? I don't know. That's possible. Not actually sure about that. I definitely need to go through the comic books again. And like I said, if I end up making this, you know, comic book video series that I'm kind of starting to plan out, then it might force me to have to properly go through each individual comic book and kind of like figure out what I have and properly document it and things like that. So, you never know. Maz is laughing at me. Maz is always laughing at me. Zoo says, I've been nicknamed the thrift queen by my friends. I just have dumb luck. That's really cool. Like, the thing is that's really cool about, you know, thrift stores is sometimes you can get really lucky and buy really collectible items that are a lot more valuable than what they're being sold for at the thrift store. And, like, you can't really know it until you get your hands on it, and then you take it home, and then find out that it's worth a small fortune. And that's always really fun, so you never know. Maz never liked Superman. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Superman either, but he's alright. Ratherwood says, I have this book from the 70s. It's a reprint collection of first comics from Batman, Superman, etc. It's pretty cool. That's kind of neat. I have some graphic hardcovers that my dad collected that are basically reprints of really old comic books. And I think that those graphic novels are also worth something too, because they're part of like a special like printed collection that was on a like a limited run or something like that. Let's see. My dad's recommending Maz to read Superman comics. There you go. The Man of Steel series is like the rebooted Man of Steel series was pretty good. So yeah, you know, Maz, if you're actually looking to kind of get into comic books, you know, my dad will definitely be more than happy to recommend you some good ones. Like, you know, that always makes me think of like the old, what is it? Oh God, what is that amazing Batman series that I so adored? My dad had like a collector's like silver rimmed, like silver coated pages, leather bound with like a ribbon bookmark and like made of silk. I think it was like the Dark Knight, right? Wasn't it the Dark Knight series or something like that? And they had like the thing about what was it? Oh God, it was so good. The Dark Knight Returns, where like he dies and stuff like that. It's so good. That's like probably the best Batman story I've ever read in my entire life. Also have a sealed Ren and Stimpy comic with a stink bomb in it. Ooh. I used to love Ren and Stimpy as a kid. It's been a long time though. Poppy says Alan Moore's story of Superman who never came to Earth and lived on Kandor was a story before John Burns. Oh yeah, okay. Only watched the movie V for Vendetta. The movie V for Vendetta was pretty good. I've seen the movie as well and I really enjoyed it, but I've never actually read the original comic book series, which I probably have access to. I mean, I'm not gonna read these bad boys. Like, no, I'm not even allowed to take these out of the case, as far as I'm convinced. These could probably be afford to be treated better. I could probably lay them against some cardboard or something. But God, the artwork is so beautiful, you guys. Look at that. Look at the artwork on the back of this cover. It's insane. That's so cool. I'm also curious as to what the year was on this. Let's see, do they have a year? Well, they have September 1988. Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. Love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's see here. V for Vendetta movie was pretty good. The graphic novel's better. Yeah, like I said, I haven't read it. I probably should. Cindy, what's up, brother? How you doing, Home Slice? Just got home from work. For comic books, we have Tank Girl, Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Cyberfrog. Okay, man. I don't know anything about Cyberfrog. I have never really been a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, I can't really remember. I think I might have watched it when I was a little tiny boy. But I've never, outside of maybe liking the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a small boy, I've never been a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've never really been into it. I don't know. It was never really my thing. I never really cared that much about the Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles. But yeah, so, I don't know. It's just never been my thing. Zoo says, I would like to try playing Dungeons & Dragons, never had before, and the concept is kind of hard for me to understand for some reason. I mean, I'm sure that if you look, like, I think that I've heard that you can get into groups on Facebook. Like, you could probably go around on Facebook and find, like, a group of people who are willing to, you know, play with somebody new. And they'd probably treat you all right, and I mean, if they don't, then just leave that group and find a different one, you know? And, there was a website that, you know, my D&D group used to use called, I think it was called Roll20. And that was kind of like the online Dungeons & Dragons simulator. And, the group that I used to play with, we used it all the time, and it was great. Like, it was a lot of fun. And, it was just super convenient. And even now, during, like, you know, COVID and all of that, it's probably, like, the best way to go about playing Dungeons and Dragons as well. So I would highly recommend maybe looking into a Facebook group that's willing to take on new players if you're really curious. There's probably somebody who, like a group of people who are more than happy to have you join their group and play with them. Let's see. My pop says, I think I still have that. Let me check. Probably the Dark Knight series. Yeah. Zoo says, I have Coach and Prada purses for under $10. Oh, from finding them at a thrift store? That's awesome. Doc Marten boots for $28. London Fog trench coat for $13. A vase worth $200 to $300 for only $10. Yeah, no shit. You're good at that. Damn, Zoo. Zoo, I think a while ago you were talking about how you wanted to, like, make a channel and do content. You should do, like, videos about finding, like, good deals at thrift stores or something like that. It sounds like you're good at it. You could probably teach people how to do it. That might be something really cool. Maz says the 90s Batman movie is the best with the Riddler and Two-Face. You know what's really interesting? Maz, if you love, like, the classic, like, 90s Batman cartoons, which, by the way, the old Batman cartoons from the 90s, and my dad can vouch for me on this, they are amazing. They are so good. And if there was anything that I could recommend you, Maz, if you're really into the old 90s Batman cartoons, which are absolutely fantastic, like the old 90s Batman Gothic cartoons, if you're into that, because they are amazing. If you've never seen it, Maz, go and watch the Batman animated movie, Mask of the Phantasm. Oh my god. That movie, the animated movie, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, that movie is a work of art. It's not just an animated film. That is an animated work of art. Everything about it. The animation is amazing. The voice acting is amazing. The story is amazing. The characters are amazing. Like, the setting is amazing. Like, everything about that movie is absolutely just totally freaking spectacular. I love it. And the thing is that makes, like, one of the things I absolutely love about Mask of the Phantasm is it's, like, I like to compare Batman Mask of the Phantasm to watching a movie like Star Trek Wrath of Khan, which is, now when I say that, it's like, oh, well, you can't really compare those films. They're totally different. The thing that I always love about Batman Mask of the Phantasm and, you know, Star Trek Wrath of Khan is you can get somebody who has never seen a Batman movie or has never read a Batman comic or a Batman story, and you can make them watch Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And it has, like, the thing that's great about it is that you don't need to know anything about Batman to enjoy how well put together that story is. They give you enough information about the characters to understand, like, who they are, what they do, why they are the way that they are, why they do things the way they do them. And then they give you a story that, like, people can relate to and can understand. Like, you don't need to know, like, the Batman universe or comic book universe or anything like that to understand, like, why they're telling the story that they're telling and the natural progression of that story and, like, how great it is. Like, and I bring that up with Wrath of Khan because Wrath of Khan is exactly the same. You can be a person who's never seen a Star Trek movie or a Star Trek episode or know anything about Star Trek, and you can watch the movie Star Trek Wrath of Khan, and it literally stands completely alone as a great story. Like I said, they do the same thing, which is, you know, they introduce to you all the characters, they give you all the information you need to know to understand who they are, what they do, and why they do what they're doing. And then they tell you a story that people can relate to and people can understand without having to know any information about those characters outside of that film. Like, that's what makes Mask of the Phantasm so great, and that's what makes also, like I said, Wrath of Khan so great. Those movies completely stand up on their own, and they don't need any context outside of themselves to tell you a great story. I love Mask of the Phantasm. That is such a good movie. And, like I love it because it's that movie, like, the Mask of the Phantasm is, like, first of all, it's, like, I want to kind of try to describe it without spoiling it for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's basically a tragedy based on obsession. Like, and I'm saying that very vaguely. Like, it's a tragic story about a character who's obsessed with something. And it's basically like you watch them basically lose themselves in their obsession. And, like, watching that character slowly lose themselves to their obsession is just this beautifully well-told tragedy. Like, Mask of the Phantasm, it's such a great story, and it's, like, actually really tragic. It's really sad. But, oh my god, it is so good. I love that film. For anybody who hasn't seen the animated film, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, go and watch it. It's so good. It is such a good movie. And I did notice that Maz said that she has actually seen Mask of the Phantasm, which is totally cool. I'm glad you're into that. Because that is a great Batman story. That's probably one of my favorites for sure. And you know what? Like, if you, like, Maz, if you like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, you definitely should watch you should definitely read the Dark Knight Returns series. Like, I think who was it done by? Was it Christopher Nolan? No, not Christopher Nolan. That's a film director, not a comic book writer. What am I saying? It's not Alan Moore. It's, what is the name of the guy who did the Dark Knight Returns? Well, it's actually funny because Christopher Nolan did direct The Dark Knight Returns. So I did have the right idea, just not the right medium of media. Oh, I'm sure that somebody will chime in, probably my dad, who will be able to say who it was, but it was the guy who did 300, right? Wasn't that the guy who did The Dark Knight Returns? I can't remember. Let's see here. I'm kind of rolling through the chat log a little bit here to see where I fell behind. Zeus says, I think that I may have some quality chef pots and pans that were like $2 to $5. That's pretty cool. From thrift shopping. That's pretty nice. Ratherwood says, have a homemade 90s magazine type comic thing, World War III. Peeps could send in comics, a lot of them religious/occult. That's really interesting. I actually have I think it's called like a Daisy Rider comic book, I think. It's one of like the oldest like things I have. Let me go see if I can find it. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, I keep walking away from the thing, but I'll be really quick because I think I know exactly where it is. Let me see if I have it here. Alright. I think this might be one of the single oldest things I have that when it comes to comic books. And like I said, it was exactly right where I thought it was. Holy crap, it's dusty. Hold on a second. You guys will notice when I show it to you that it's in a Ziploc bag. This was given to me by my father, and it was totally not protected in any way whatsoever. And I held on to it for a very, very long time until I finally decided as a teenager that it would probably be a good idea to actually try and protect it in some way. So this is the Daisy Handbook. 10 cents! There you go. And it's got Captain Marvel. The original! Look at that, guys! The original Captain Marvel! That's right. That was before he underwent a sex change. So it's got Captain Marvel, Robot Man, the famous Red Rider, Da Vinci, Two Gun Percy, Rudolph Diesel, Boy Commandos, and Ibis. And it says right below it, the American Boys Fun and Fact Digest. Look at that. How is that for a relic of the past, huh? And then on the back, it's got an advertisement for a Red Ryder Daisy BB gun. Look at that. You too can cut this off and send in as a mail order to acquire a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. And yeah, this is look at how torn up it is. This might be one of the oldest, this is probably the oldest comic book I own, I think. Wow. I've not looked at this thing in quite some time, but yeah, that's something that my dad gave me a long, long time ago. I think he gave it to me as a teenager because he was smart enough to know not to give that to me as a small kid. Oh man, let's see here. But yeah, that's something that I've had for a long time, and it's so torn up that I doubt it's actually worth anything, but I like having it because it's cool. Let's see. Maz is saying, that is nasty turtle harm. You can't enter the turtle club. Turtle? Okay. You do you, girl. It's all good. I'm not here to question your logic. It's okay. You say whatever you feel like. Cinder Shadow says Cyberfrog is Ethan Van Shriver comic book. Oh, I think I've heard of that guy before. He was the main artist for Green Lantern Corps. Oh, okay. He was, let's see, before people tried to cancel him for the Yellow Corps, World War II comparisons. Huh, that's interesting. My pop says, yep, still got it, complete. Frank Miller, that's the name, Frank Miller. Yeah, Maz, go and read the Frank Miller series of The Dark Knight. It's incredible. Batman Year One, Wanted Santa Claus, I do remember that, Dead or Alive, and The Dark Knight Returns. Dark Knight Returns is the best Batman story of all time. It's so good. The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns is amazing. It's amazing! It's so cool. First and third foundation for Nolan trilogy. Yep, that's right. I would say that the next best Batman story is probably Killing Joke, which is really interesting because it's like, I've actually read The Killing Joke. I read the graphic novel in a bookstore once, and it was really messed up, first of all. That is a really dark, bloody, nasty Batman story. Like, it's the Joker at his most insane, first of all. And his bloodiest. Like, the Joker straight up murders a lot of people in that story. It's really crazy because one of the things that The Killing Joke is all about is how the Joker and Batman are very, very similar to one another. They share a lot in common, especially in that story, and it's really, really super off-putting how similar they are through that story. Let's see. Yeah, I was never a fan of Batman Beyond. I'm sorry, Maz. That was not something I was really into. Let's see. Batman animated show intro scared me as a kid. That dark red Warner Brothers logo. Yeah, dude. Well, that's the thing. In my opinion, the old 90s Batman show, like the animated Batman series, that was not a show for children. That is not a show for the consumption of young children. That was like the original Gothic Dark Knight like style animated series. It was a heavy story with it was a heavy show with heavy stories. Like, it was not made for kids. Had a lot of really dark stories in it. Rutherwood says it always came on after reading Rainbow, and I always changed the channel. I don't blame you. That's what's funny is because it was like Like, another show that was really like that, where it's like, you would think that it's for kids, but it's actually not. Has anybody ever seen the old Gargoyles show? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The show about the gargoyles that came to life, and they were like, you know, like defenders of the people, but they were like really like dark defenders. Like, they were, that show was another show that you would think was for kids. It's not for kids. It's so dark. Like, that was like not a good show for children to watch. But yeah, there were some shows like that back in the 90s. They used to do that. Like, they used to have really edgy, like, not all over the place, clearly, but they had some pretty edgy shows that, like, were aimed at kids, but probably not intended for kids. You know what I mean? Let's see. What says... Yeah, okay, I read that, sorry. Cindy says, on the laptop eating supper. Oh yeah, it's all good, it's all good. We're just talking about comic books, kicking it. I'm thinking about, like I said, I'll mention it again, I'm thinking about doing a new series where I talk, like a new video series where I talk about comic books and stuff like that. So that's something I'm thinking about maybe doing soon. We'll see. Frank Miller wrote 300. Okay, that's what I thought. Mr. Captain Marvel, that's right. Classic Mr. Captain Marvel. There he is right there in all of his glory. There he is, all of his glory. What's the year on this? It doesn't even have a year on it. Yeah, there's no year on this that I can see. I bet you it would be up in this corner, which is like torn off. I'm trying to see on the back here, because this is an advertisement on the back. I'm trying to see if they have like any kind of like copyright or anything like that. It legitimately seems like that it seems like all the places where you would find a year are all torn off. So I don't think I can give you guys a year on when this thing was produced, but it's super cool. I like it. I think it was from my dad's childhood, honestly. My dad says that was his dad's. So this isn't even a book from my father's childhood. This is a book from my grandfather's childhood. How nuts is that? That's so ridiculous. Let's see. Ratherwood says, "You'll shoot your eye out." Yeah, pretty much. Hey, what's up, Bo? Thank you for being here. Glad to have you here, Home Slice. Let's see. Laz, my pop, says, agreed on Killing Joke significantly changed much in the DC verse. Yeah, that was... Killing Joke was when they decided to actually make the Joker into, like, a homicidal maniac. Like, not just a kooky clown boy. He literally became a homicidal maniac when they did that story. Ratherwood says he remembers the Gargoyles show, but not much about it. Yeah, I watched it when I was a kid. I don't remember a ton about it, but I remember it was very dark. It was not really a show that kids should be watching. That's for sure. Maz says Joker, Harlequin are the best married villains. I mean, yeah, I guess. It's alright. I mean, like, you know, it's fine. Harlequin's chill, I guess. She's alright. She's kind of her own thing, you know, like... And that's not just because that's how the movies made her. Harlequin, for a long time, even in the comic books, was, like, kind of her own thing who did her, like, she just went off and just, like, because that's what the Joker was like, and, like, they wanted to make a character that was like the Joker, but female, and with Harlequin, like, she was just like that. She would go off and she would do her own thing, and she wouldn't care, you know? And, like, that was kind of always a really interesting dynamic between the Joker and Harlequin, is the fact that, like, they're considered, like, a couple, you know? And, I mean, I guess people consider them to be, like, a dynamic duo, but it was very common that they didn't really do tons and tons of things together all the time. They kind of went off on their own shenanigans, and, like, yeah, like, they did have their stories of, like, doing things with each other, and that's kind of how they were introduced and how they were presented, but it became, like... Harlequin went off to do her own things and run her own schemes and be the crazy woman that she ended up becoming, and that was fine, you know? Let's see. Gargoyles is an amazing show. Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched it since I was a kid, obviously, but I did hear a lot of great things about it, especially if you're an adult rather than a child. But it had some, I remember it having some pretty dark stuff to it. Like, it was a pretty dark show. And very, like, it had that classic, like, it was, like, you could probably relate it to the old 90s Batman cartoons, where, because Batman had that really kind of gothic, you know, style, where it was, like, very dark, very stylized, but, like, in a very, like spooky, gothic, almost kind of macabre sort of fashion. So, you know, and I think Gargoyles did that, too. Like, it was very, you know, stylized to be dark and twisted and you know, gothic and stuff like that. And that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool. Bo Falcon also watched a little bit of Gargoyles. That's cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I actually know that on one of the anime streaming sites that I watch, they actually host Gargoyles on it. I've seen it, like, because I have, I go through and kind of, like, look at random, you know, shows every once in a while, just kind of, like, flip through the index and see what they have available. And I know that the original series of Gargoyles is, in fact, in that collection somewhere, so maybe someday. Let's see, Dad says, the Daisy Handbook here might be inside, but it's old. I ain't opening it. Like, I made a promise to myself when I was a teenager. Like, you can even tell, like, if you look at the actual bag, it's very dusty and cloudy on the outside. I made a promise to myself years ago, like, when I was a teenager and you gave me this, I put it in this Ziploc bag, and I made a promise to myself, I am never, like, maybe someday, if I needed to, like, move it out of this Ziploc bag to put it in something more safe and more protective, then yeah, maybe I'll pull it out of this bag. But I basically made a promise to myself to pretty much never touch this thing ever again, because it is way damaged. There's, like, I would hate for this thing to fall apart any more than it has. And mind you guys, like, it was given to me this way. And the impression that I got from my father is that it was given to him pretty much this way as well. Like, not in the Ziploc bag, but just in the condition with the corners missing and all that. So, I mean, I don't think that my dad was taking bad care of it. I think that this was just how it was given to him. And we've kind of both, me and my father have both kind of taken turns trying desperately to keep this thing in good condition as best as we possibly can. So, it's kind of funny. For anybody who doesn't know already, if it isn't completely obvious, me and my dad are both hardcore collectors of varying types. So, like, my dad has been a very obsessive collector, and he raised me. I am my father's son. I am my father's son. I am a very obsessive collector, and I collect lots of things. And I try to take care of things as well. Like, for example, like, I've shown you guys this thing right here. Like, this guy right here, he ain't never coming out of this package, you guys. You guys gotta understand that. Like, this is not something my dad gave me. This is something I did on my own volition. Like, this is a choice that I made. This is something that I chose to collect. And I made the choice to never, ever, ever pull this out of the box, ever. It's mint in the box, baby. You're not supposed to take it out. This is how you enjoy this. This is how you enjoy what this is supposed to be. So, yeah, like, I am my father's son, and I am a very obsessive collector who probably has collected... And by the way, another thing, too. Here's another one. I don't think I've really ever shown this one off. This is a limited edition Pokemon Lugia figure in the box. And if you open up the box, which, by the way, it came to me like this. Like, this was the most amount of wrapping that it came in. It didn't even have, like, a plastic seal on it. So, like, you can actually open this box, which I've done before, and you can look on the inside very carefully. I try to take really good care of it. And you'll notice the Lugia figure is still in the bag, baby. It's still in the bag. Because that's the kind of person I am. I'm ridiculous sometimes, you guys. Sometimes I think I'm totally ridiculous with how I do these things. I think this is how it's supposed to look if you were to pull it out of the box and the bag. I think that's what it's supposed to look like, but... And it's even got all of the little, you know, because this was a promotion for the Soul Silver release. It was a special limited release of this figurine for this very specific game, which I still have all the collector's packaging for, obviously. So, there you go, guys. I'm a ridiculous man who collects ridiculous things, clearly. Let's see here. Okay, so Ratherwood says the Daisy Handbook is from 1946. There's only one for sale for $32. There you go. It's not worth anything, guys. And I would assume that the one that's worth $32 that you're looking at is probably in better condition than what I have here. But I think the main thing is that it's not like, when you become like a really hardcore collector like myself, like, and a lot of other people feel this way too, it's not necessarily about how valuable the item is, you know? Like, a lot of the time it's got like, for example, like this guy. Like, yeah, this guy right here, he's probably worth a fortune, right? Like, this is a foil Charizard. I think it's like probably second or third printing or something like that, so it's not as valuable as some of the older Charizards out there. But the thing is that, like, no matter what the price tag is on this guy, it's never going to be worth, like, the value that it holds for me personally. So, and the fact that, like, this Daisy Handbook is something that my father passed down to me, and also my grandfather passed it down to my father, and then my father gave it to me afterwards. Like, that's worth more than $32. Like, clearly. Like, that's priceless. You know what I mean? So, like, and I feel like a lot of collectors are in that same kind of boat. You know, like, and like I said, this is from my childhood. So, like, this is irreplaceable to me, because this is something that, you know, I had in my childhood, and it's very important to me. And I mean, that's the same with this guy over here, too. But, you know, it's, like, you know, you just get to that point of where, like, you know, like, yeah, you have your collectors that, like, collect things that are valuable, but, like, that's more of, like, the collector that's a flipper. You know, like, you have your box flippers, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go out and buy all these magic cards that are super expensive and valuable so that I can hold on to them for a couple years so that I can flip them for more cash, right? But that's not, like, the real, like, collector mentality, you know? Like, a lot of the time, real collectors, like, collect things for certain reasons, and they don't care about, like, the monetary value a lot of the time, you know? Because, like, they have, like, a reason collecting what they collect, and it's important to them. And that's definitely how I feel a lot of the time with, you know, a lot of the things that I collect. Like, it's not about how valuable they are in the end. You know, it's like, I mean, actually, that's not true. There is a particular value to them, to the collector, but that value is not dictated by monetary value. You know? Like, for example, these first editions that I have, these are probably worth a fortune, but I don't think I'll ever sell these. Like, I won't, because that's not what it's about, you know? Like, it's not about the end result of, like, how much money is this going to gain me someday. It's about the fact that, you know, like, my father, who is a collector of comic books and loves comic books, wanted to share that with me as I grew up, you know? And I mean, obviously, like, you know, it's not the same way of enjoyment as, you know, if I were to actually physically read the comic books, because obviously we can't help but accept the fact that these are collector's items, you know? Like, and if you take them out and you choose to read them, then you're going to lower their value as collector's items. So it's not necessarily about sharing, you know, the process of reading the comic books that you're collecting. And it's not necessarily about, you know, the monetary value. It's about enjoying something because it's a hobby, and then being able to share the enjoyment of that hobby with somebody else that you care about. And that's what, like, collecting these items to most collectors is really about. it's just about the enjoyment of the process. It's the enjoyment about, you know, having something that you can enjoy on your own, but also share with other people in the same fashion that you enjoy it yourself, you know? And I mean, that goes way past monetary value, clearly. Like, it's literally, like, the only way to describe it is that it's literally priceless. You know, that ability to physically collect something that has that, you know, personal value to it is literally priceless, because, you know, people can't really put a price tag on the emotional attachment that you can put on those items because of what they matter to you, based on, you know, the people that gave them to you, or the people that you shared those hobbies with, or that enjoyment with, or whatever, you know? So most of the things I collect, I don't really have any kind of interest in really selling them, like, at all. My cards, my cardboard boxes, my figurines, my rare books, my rare comic books, all that stuff, you know? It's not about money. It's not. It's really just not about money. And, like, I kind of see it as, like, you know, I totally get people who want to do that kind of stuff just to make money and stuff like that, but I have more respect for people who can do this kind of stuff because they genuinely enjoy it, rather than because they're trying to make a fast buck, you know? Because, I mean, there's so many things out there that you can definitely make a fast buck on. And it kind of, you know, is a little disheartening when it's, you know, people, you know, I don't know, kind of like using people's personal interests, and I don't know, I guess maybe that's not the right way to put it. It's just that, like, there's different kinds of people who see things in different ways with monetary gain versus, you know, personal gain. Like, you know, emotional personal gain or whatever. And I find myself more in the line of, you know, I collect things not because they're going to make me money, but because they're enjoyable for my own reasons, I guess. Let's see here. Birds of Prey might not exist if not for Killing Joke. Yeah, I could see that. That's true. Because there's a major spoiler that I can't talk about in the Killing Joke that leads into the Birds of Prey series. And if, you know, that major spoiler that happens in that book never happened, then quite literally the Birds of Prey would not exist. So, Zoo loves Harlequin. You know, ladies love Harlequin, man. The ladies, they love Harlequin. They really do. And you know what? As we've all learned over time, Harlequin loves the ladies. She does. She really does. Zoo says, I was so disappointed by Suicide Squad movie. I'm so glad that I'm not the only person who didn't like the Suicide Squad movie. I was not a fan. I was really not a fan of it. Maz says, Batman Beyond, Harley Quinn was in a servitude to the Joker in Batman Beyond. I didn't really watch the Batman Beyond series at all, so I wouldn't really know. Joker and Harley Quinn never married. I figured as much. Well, I mean, they did a lot of things separately. They really did. Like, I mean, you know, because it's kind of funny because people always kind of see them as, like, the dynamic villain duo. But a lot of the stories that revolved around the two of them, like, they had, like, a small serial where they were together all the time. But the majority of their career in the comic books were mostly them going off and doing their own thing. Like, Joker would do his thing, and Harley Quinn would do her thing. And then every once in a while, they would meet up again and kind of, like, plot something together. And then they would be off and do whatever they felt like again. So, just, you know, it's not, like, I don't know. They just, I never personally saw them. Like, for example, in my opinion, I would say that the ultimate Harley Quinn duo was Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And a lot of people don't know that. There was literally there was a long series of comics that were all about Harlequin and Poison Ivy doing stuff together. Like, literally a whole series of comic books. Like, way more intricate and longer than any storyline that really involved the Joker and Harlequin. Like, Harlequin and Poison Ivy were quite literally the primary villainous dynamic duo. Like, they did so much, they did a lot of things together. Trust me. More, like, they were very, very much together in more ways than one. Like I said, Harlequin loves the ladies. She's a ladies girl, if you know what I'm saying. Let's see here. Bo says Harlequin didn't exist until they retconned her in during the early cartoon Batman because they wanted another female villain. That's right, I actually forgot about that. They wrote Harlequin into an animated series before she existed in the comic books, which is also pretty interesting. And then she was so popular in the animated series that they brought her into the comic books world, which is kind of interesting. Rutherwood says he has some Donald Duck comics that have crayon on it from when my dad was a kid. That's pretty cool. That's kind of neat. Having the thing is cooler than the money. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely know what you mean by that. Money is just money. These are artifacts. Exactly. And the thing is, too, is like, you know, like, there's always the classic thing of, like, you know, you have that item and then you sell it off and then you regret it. Like, at some point, like, you know, you were, like, because there have been a couple of things that I, like, got rid of, you know? Like, that I had lost touch with or I got rid of when I was younger. And I have had some times where I'm like, man, I really wish that I didn't get rid of that item. Like, I really wish that I held on to it. Because it sucks, like, especially if you have some kind of personal connection with it. And that also, like, having that, you know, those times of, like, feeling bad that you got rid of something that, like, you realized was more personal to you than you first realized, like, it sucks, especially when you know that you can never have it again, you know? Killing Joke, Joker created Oracle. Oh, well, Jesus Christ, Dad. Spoiler alert. Whoa. Whoa, man. Come on. Spoiler alert. Why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody that Darth Vader is Luke's father while you're at it? Oops. Collect what you enjoy, and sometimes you look out. That's true. That's true. I also have a lot of useless crap, too, because I collect a lot of things, so... Remember that amateur means doing something for the love of it. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, I think, let me double check the time, because I know that, you know, my, software has the wrong timing here. Yeah, so I do have to end this off, guys. So I will have to end this off. That was a lot of fun, just kind of chit-chatting with you guys and hanging out, talking about comic books and things like that. So I do have to end it off here. Like I said, I'll be further brainstorming the idea of doing this new video series that will probably be about comic books if I end up doing it. And like I said, clearly, you know, I have some good material here. I very clearly have some really good material here that I could definitely do, you know, a comic book video series based off of. So, you know, I'll brainstorm it a little more, kind of plan it out. Maybe I'll have to probably do some research as well if I want to get as deep with it as I plan to. And then maybe I'll start recording and we'll see where we go from there. That might be kind of fun. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get your opinions on it. Like, you know, feel free to let me know if you guys genuinely think that a comic book video series would be really interesting. I'd love to, you know, hear the feedback on that. You know, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead and hit that like button because I appreciate it. And as I'm saying this, it's because go ahead and leave me a comment letting me know if you think that doing a video series about comic books would be really interesting, because I think it would be really fun, and I kind of want to try it out. So, I mean, I'll probably do it no matter what, but, you know, getting some feedback on it would be nice as well, and I'd greatly appreciate that. So, like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment down below letting me know if you think it's a good idea. Hit that notification bell, do those things, because they super help me out with the algorithm, grow my channel, get me distributed a little better. Greatly appreciate that. So much fun. Go ahead and check in the description below for all of my wonderful links, such as my Streamlabs as well as my PayPal, and other various different links down there below. And that includes my Patreon, which I greatly appreciate all the wonderful Patreon members that I have, because their continued donations help support the channel, and all the money that I get through those donations goes directly towards the channel. So having that really helps me out. And I'm also going to give a wonderful shout out to those wonderful Patreons that support me, which include ya boy Lettuce, Bo Falcon, Fajouk Enterprises, James P., Mr. Ashed, and Miss Rebecca. So thank you so much to my Patreon members. You guys are wonderful. You treat me great. And the last thing I'm going to say to you guys, which I always say at the end of all my streams and most of my videos, which is, guys, follow your dreams, okay? And I will see y'all later. Have a great night. Be good to one another. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.